If you've ever been told you're too quiet, too closed off, or too independent, this video is going to completely change how you see yourself. We've been raised to believe that certain behaviors are rude, antisocial, cold. That if you don't speak up, you're not confident. That if you close your door, you're shutting people out. That if you never ask for help, something is wrong with you. And honestly, most of us believed it for a long time. But here's what the research actually says. These behaviors, the ones that made you feel guilty, the ones you second guessed your whole life, they're not signs of weakness. In a lot of cases, they're signs of something far more rare. In this video, we're going through 7 specific things that most people hesitate to do because they're afraid of being judged, and we're going to look at what psychology actually says about the people who do them anyway. By the end, you might owe yourself a bit of an apology. Let's start with something small. You're at home or at work, and someone is just walking past in the hallway, and you quietly close the door until he goes away. Or you keep it closed in the first place. Most people assume you are shy, or you're shutting people out. And let's be honest, at some point, you probably started to wonder if they were right. But psychologists call this space-claiming behavior, and it's deeply connected to something called boundary intelligence. People with high boundary intelligence instinctively understand that their environment directly affects the quality of their thinking. An open door creates what researchers call ambient social pressure, a low-level awareness that someone could interact with you at any second. That pressure, even when nothing actually happens, consumes cognitive resources. Think of it like running a program in the background of your computer. You can't see it, but it's draining the battery. It's background noise your brain has to manage, and for some people, it's genuinely expensive. High-functioning people close doors, literally and metaphorically, not to shut people out, but to protect the quality of what's happening inside. That's not antisocial, that is cognitive self-preservation. And there's a difference. You're in a meeting, everyone's talking, opinions flying, and you're sitting there, listening, thinking. Maybe you have something to say, but you wait, and then the moment passes. Afterward, you wonder, should I have said something? And I want you to hear what the research actually found. A study from the University of California looked at high-verbal participants in group settings, the loudest voices in the room, and found they were consistently rated as more intelligent by peers. But when the quality of their contributions was actually measured, the quiet participants consistently produced more insightful output. There's a name for this: the social performance gap. The people performing confidence aren't the same people generating insight. Let that land for a second. Psychologists who study group decision-making have found that people who speak less in groups tend to process information more holistically. They're not quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they're actually listening. And in most rooms, that is genuinely the rarest thing happening. This one is the one people feel the most guilty about. You'd rather spend 3 hours figuring something out by yourself than ask someone for help in 10 minutes. And you've been told that's stubbornness, pride, inefficiency. And honestly, you may have even told yourself that. But let's look at what actually happens in your brain when you solve a problem yourself. When you work through a problem without external input, your brain builds what neuroscientists call durable encoding. The neural pathway formed by effortful problem solving is stronger, more connected, and more retrievable than one formed by simply being told the answer. It's why students who teach themselves a concept, even imperfectly, consistently outperform students who were taught it correctly the first time. The struggle isn't the obstacle, the struggle is the learning. People who never ask for help aren't proud. They're building something that people who always ask for help aren't: self-generated capability, a kind of competence that belongs completely to them. That's not a flaw. That's how mastery gets built. Before we get to number 4, if you're recognizing yourself in this list, that's not a coincidence. You're not a lot to handle. You're a lot to understand. Hit subscribe because we cover exactly this kind of psychology every single week. You might be a lot rarer than you've been told. Your phone buzzes. You see the message, you read it, and you don't reply right away. Not because you're ignoring them. You just need a minute. In a world that treats instant replies as a social obligation, this makes people feel guilty, rude, cold. And let's be honest, You've probably typed and deleted a reply more than once just to avoid that guilt. But look at who actually does this. Research on communication patterns shows that people who delay responses are operating with what's called high response intentionality. They're not reacting, they're choosing. They want to give a real answer, not just a fast one. Here's the flip side. The compulsion to reply instantly is actually linked to social anxiety and conflict avoidance, not social intelligence. You know what's fascinating? The person who takes their time is often the one who respects the conversation most. Not responding immediately isn't ghosting. It's the difference between reacting and responding. Classrooms, presentations, events. You head for the back. People assume you're disengaged, hiding, unconfident, and yeah, maybe you've let them think that. It's easier than explaining. But here's what's actually happening. Choosing the back of a room or the perimeter of any social space is a positioning behavior tied to what psychologists call environmental mastery. People who do this instinctively want to see the full picture before engaging with any part of it. It's the same instinct that makes highly observant people pause at the entrance of a room before walking in. They're scanning, processing, mapping, not hesitating, preparing. Studies on spatial behavior in social settings found that people who choose perimeter positions score higher in situational awareness and lower in social performance anxiety. They're not hiding, they're observing. And before they ever engage with anything, they already understand the room. That's not the weakest position. That is the most powerful one. Someone catches you in the hallway. Hey, can you believe this weather? And something inside you just deflates. You answer, but you're already calculating the exit. Sound familiar? Society labels this snobbery, rudeness. People assume you think you're better than them. But research from the University of Arizona tells a different story. People who report low satisfaction with small talk consistently report a high preference for what researchers call substantive interaction. Conversations that are actually about something real. This isn't about being cold. It's about cognitive appetite. For some people, and psychology links this to higher openness and conscientiousness scores, the mental cost of small talk actually exceeds its social reward. The conversation doesn't fill you up. It drains you. And you've known that your entire life, you just didn't have a name for it. You're not antisocial. You're hungry for something more real. And that's a completely valid way to be wired. Group projects, team lunches, collaborative brainstorms, you'd rather do it alone. People find it strange, sad even, and honestly, there's a version of you that spent years trying to pretend otherwise. But here's what actually happens when you're alone. The American Psychological Association published research showing that people with a preference for solitary work produce higher quality output in tasks requiring deep focus, creativity, or analytical reasoning. The environment that feels productive to most people, the open office, the group chat, the shared table, is actually cognitively fragmenting for others. And the people who eat alone, studies show they're not isolated. They're using that time to process, recover, and think, not to escape. Susan Cain's research in Quiet found that introverts, people who genuinely need solitude to function at their best, represent up to 50% of the population, including a disproportionate number of the world's most effective leaders, scientists, and creators. Preferring to work alone isn't a limitation. It's a working style. And for some brains, it's the only working style that actually works. Here's the thread connecting all 7 of these. None of them are about being rude. None of them are about being broken or cold or difficult. Every single one of them is a form of self-regulation, a natural, instinctive intelligence about what you need to think clearly, protect your energy, and produce your best work. Society taught you to apologize for these things. And most of you did. For years, but they don't perform confidence. They don't perform warmth. They just work. Quietly. Effectively. Without applause. The rarest personality trait isn't charisma. It's not being the loudest in the room. It's the ability to know yourself well enough to protect what makes you function. Even when the whole world tells you you're wrong for it. If that's you, You're not antisocial. You're rare. If this video felt like it was written about you, you're in the right place. This channel is built around exactly this: the psychology of the way you actually are, not the way the world says you should be. Subscribe and watch this next. It goes even deeper into why people like you are wired this way.